for Obama, it's going to be bigger. Now, the other problem exacerbating this is the state of the housing industry. You've got, today in America, 1 out of every 5 mortgages that is either in foreclosure or 3 months or more late. We're probably going to have another 2 million foreclosures between now and 2000 and the end of 2010, first quarter of 2011. Here again, the Obama administration's policy was to have the federal government subsidize the loss in equity in the value of those homes that were underwater. There are approximately 10 million such mortgages. And they would help make the banks whole, and then the banks in turn would reset the loan for the lender. Sounds like a good idea. It's had the opposite of the intended effect. What's happened is people who were making their mortgage payments are looking at a neighbor who's not making their mortgage payments and is therefore eligible for the program to get a federally subsidized reformulation of the loan. And what's happening? Fewer and fewer people are making their payments so that they can qualify for the program. So again, economy will be a big problem. Secondly, healthcare. Here again, I think you have a president who campaigned as one thing and is governing as another. Let me just point out 2 specific examples, and these were clear, unambiguous policy differences between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in the primaries. These were both points of fierce contention between the candidates and the campaigns. First of all, Barack Obama was against a public option, said, I don't believe that's the way to go. Hillary Clinton was for the public option. And then you remember when Edwards dropped out, they then both tried to get his support, and he would not give it without them committing to a public option. Then after he becomes president, his plan, or at least that the original House-passed version and the Reid bill that ultimately ended up not getting passed in its original form, both had the public option, and Obama embraced those. So it's very difficult to campaign one way and then govern another. Let me give you another example. The individual mandate. If this bill passes this week and ultimately is fixed in reconciliation, the result is going to be, for the first time in American history, the federal government is going to tell you that you have to purchase health insurance, and if you don't, either you or your employer is going to pay a fine. Now, what did Barack Obama have to say about that during the campaign? I want to read a direct quote. This is from the CNN Univision debate on February 21st of 2008. This is the final debate before the all-important Texas and Ohio primaries. This is what Obama said, quote, "Understand, we are not talking about a mandate on government to provide insurance. This is a mandate on individuals to purchase it. Massachusetts has a mandate right now. They've exempted 20% of the uninsured from that mandate because they have concluded that 20% cannot afford it. In some cases, there are people who are paying fines and still cannot afford to buy health insurance. So they're actually worse off. They don't have health insurance and they're paying a fine. In order for you to force people to get health insurance, you have to have a very harsh, stiff penalty, and we will have to go after people's wages, and I think that's a mistake." Now, I don't think there's anybody in this room who has any ambiguity about what Barack Obama's position was during the campaign. This was thoroughly fleshed out. After a while, what happens to voters, or with voters, when they see a candidate articulate one position and then repeatedly and serially embrace the opposite position over and over again on the central domestic policy initiative of their administration, is they start to go, I don't know if this guy believes in anything. I don't know if I believe it. And this is exactly what's happened on healthcare. A plan that when it was first put forward, 70% of the American people supported. Today, depending upon which poll you look at, the average is 38% support, about 52% opposed. This is a remarkable reversal. Today, Barack Obama's healthcare plan, on presumably the verge of passing this week, is less popular today than the Clinton plan was in 1994 when it was withdrawn and scuttled. That just tells you how much its support has fallen. One final thing on health care. The American people do not instinctively believe that you can take 31 million people who today do not have health insurance. You're going to take them and move them into a healthcare system that has, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000 physicians. You're going to give them health insurance, presumably so that they can use that system more, and usage is going to go down, and costs are going to be reduced. If you take a larger population of consumers and you press them in on a finite number of healthcare providers and healthcare facilities, costs go up, not down. You don't have to believe me. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which is anything but a conservative think tank, recently conducted a survey nationwide and found that 83% of all emergency room visits are made by people who already have health insurance. And 40% of the visits by those with health insurance are for non-emergency related visits. So you've heard all this rhetoric during the campaign over health care reform, where Obama and the Democrat congressional leaders are saying, right now people are waiting until they're really sick and go into the emergency room. If we just gave them health insurance, they'd go to their primary care physician, and we would avoid the extraordinary expense of them walking cold into an ER on a Friday night and saying, I got a chest cold. But it's just simply not true. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, a liberal foundation that supports the health care reform, points out that people with health insurance go to emergency rooms for non-emergency reasons and run up big bills at the exact rate at which the general population has health insurance, which is about 80 to 85%. There was another study done by the Urban Institute that looked at Massachusetts, which has an individual mandate. And what they found was that the people who were mandated and required to purchase insurance used emergency rooms for non-emergency primary care as frequently with insurance as they did without insurance. So the idea that you're going to have these huge systemic savings is just not borne out by independent studies. Furthermore, if you look at the financing of this plan, it relies on $500 billion in savings from Medicare. We have no idea where those savings are going to come from. We're just told that somehow, some way, in the next 10 years, we're going to extract $500 billion from a program that today has $37 trillion in unfunded liabilities between now and the year 2050. I want you to think for just a minute about how truly confused this really is. We're going to pay for a new government entitlement program by robbing from another government entitlement program that is $37 trillion in the hole. And that's how we're going to do this while reducing the deficit. I mean, this is the equivalent of you going out and buying a new car by taking out a second mortgage on your home and saying, I paid cash for it. So see, I didn't borrow money to buy the car. I paid cash. Yeah, but you took out a second mortgage on your home. Yeah, but I paid cash. I went down and wrote a check. You still borrowed the money. You took $500 billion from a program that Americans over the age of 65 rely on that is literally a time bomb getting ready to explode. And for your generation in particular, the reason why you need to be engaged in this debate, whatever side you come down on,